People don't disappear in Black Hollow. Their voices do. And tonight, you'll hear what happens when one person listens too long. The town of Black Hollow did not welcome visitors at night. The road leading into town was narrow and poorly lit, cutting through dense woods that seemed to lean inward as if listening. Lena noticed it immediately. The silence, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that felt deliberate, heavy, as if every sound had been carefully removed. She slowed her car as she passed the rusted welcome sign. Black Hollow, population unknown. She frowned. She was sure the sign used to have a number. The sky darkened quickly as the sun slipped behind the trees. By the time Lena reached her grandmother's house, night had fully settled. The old home sat alone at the edge of town, half hidden by overgrown trees and tall weeds. Its windows were dark, reflecting nothing but shadows. Lena turned off the engine and sat in the car for a moment longer than necessary. A strange pressure filled her chest, like the air had grown heavier. She told herself it was nerves. She had not been back in Black Hollow since she was a child. Still, something felt wrong. The front door creaked loudly as she pushed it open. The sound echoed through the house, too loud, too sharp. Inside, the air was cold and stale. Dust coated every surface, and the smell of old wood and damp stone hung in the air. Lena set her suitcase down and turned on a lamp. The light flickered before settling into a weak glow. She walked slowly through the house, each step careful, as if she might disturb something. The furniture was covered in white sheets. Family photos lined the walls, but many of the faces felt unfamiliar. Some of them seemed blurred, as if time itself had tried to erase them. She reached the bedroom she would sleep in and closed the door behind her. That was when she realized something else was missing. There was no outside noise, no wind, no insects, no distant traffic. It was as if the world beyond the walls had stopped. Lena lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling. Sleep would not come. Every small sound felt amplified. The creak of old wood, the faint tick of cooling pipes, the slow rhythm of her own breathing. Hours passed. Then she heard it, a whisper. It was so quiet that at first she thought she had imagined it. The sound drifted through the room like a breath. She held still, heart pounding. Lena, her name. The whisper came again, clearer this time, sliding out of the darkness in the corner of the room. The voice was soft, strained as if speaking hurt. Lena sat up abruptly and turned on the bedside lamp. The corner was empty. She scanned the room, pulse racing. Nothing moved. Nothing stood out. The air felt thicker now, pressing against her ears. "Hello," she whispered. No answer. She laughed nervously and rubbed her face. Grief did strange things to the mind, she told herself. Stress, exhaustion. She lay back down and turned off the light. The darkness returned instantly. This time, the whisper came closer. Not louder, closer. It slid along the walls, curling around the bed. Lena? She clutched the blankets, frozen. The voice did not sound angry. It sounded tired, sad. "Who's there?" she asked, her voice trembling. The whisper stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Her ears rang as if the house itself was listening. Minutes passed, then an hour. Eventually, exhaustion pulled her into a shallow, restless sleep. When Lena woke, sunlight streamed weakly through the curtains. For a moment, she felt relief. Daylight made everything feel less threatening. But as she sat up, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. On the wall beside her bed, faint marks had appeared overnight, thin lines, like scratches, and beneath them, written in uneven strokes, was a single word. "Listen." Lena stepped back slowly, heart pounding. The house had not whispered by accident. It had spoken to her on purpose. And this was only the beginning. Lena did not sleep the next night. The word listen stayed in her mind long after she washed the wall clean. No matter how hard she scrubbed, she felt as if the message was still there, hidden beneath the paint, waiting. The house felt different in daylight, less threatening, almost ordinary, but that feeling faded as evening approached. By sunset, the silence returned. It crept into the room slowly, filling every corner. The air grew cold again, even though the heater was on. Lena wrapped herself in a sweater and told herself she was overreacting. Then the whispers came back. At first, they were faint, just soft murmurs drifting through the walls. She stood in the kitchen, holding a glass of water, when she heard something breathe her name from behind the cabinets. Lena, the glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. She pressed her back against the wall, heart racing. The whisper was not coming from one place. It was everywhere. It slid along the walls like something searching. She moved slowly through the house, following the sound. It grew louder near the hallway, where the walls felt thicker, older. She placed her palm against the wood paneling. The whisper answered immediately, so close that she felt warm air brush her skin. She pulled her hand back in horror. That night, the voices multiplied. They whispered in different tones, some high and broken, others low and strained. They spoke over each other, creating a constant restless sound, like a room full of people trying not to scream. Lena covered her ears, but it did nothing. The voices were not entering through her ears. They were coming from inside the house. As the hours passed, the whispers began to form words. Not random sounds, but sentences, questions, confessions. I'm cold. I can't breathe. Please don't forget me. One voice spoke louder than the rest. It was a man's voice, shaking and desperate. She listens. Lena felt her knees weaken. The voice continued. She hears everything. The lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. The whispers surged, louder and faster, crawling into her thoughts. She ran to the front door and tried to open it. It would not budge. The lock twisted on its own, clicking shut. The whispers laughed, not cruelly, but knowingly. Lena stumbled back, shaking. The power returned suddenly, and the house fell silent again, as if nothing had happened. The next morning, Lena left the house for the first time. Black Hollow looked abandoned. Shops were closed. Curtains were drawn tight. When she finally found someone, a woman sweeping her porch, the woman froze when she saw Lena. "You shouldn't be there," the woman whispered. Lena asked her about the house. The woman's face drained the color. "They never stop talking," she said. "That house keeps voices." Lena asked what she meant. The woman shook her head slowly. "People go missing, but their voices stay." At the town library, Lena searched through old records. Newspaper articles described disappearances spanning decades. Entire families, travelers, children, all of them lived near her grandmother's house. None were ever found. That night, Lena returned home with shaking hands. The whispers greeted her immediately, but now they were different. They knew things. They whispered memories from her childhood, secrets she had never told anyone. The sound of her grandmother humming, the last words her mother had spoken before she died. "How do you know this?" Lena screamed. The walls pulsed. The whispers answered in unison. "Listen." She backed away, covering her mouth. The walls felt closer now, as if the house was shrinking around her. A new sound joined the whispers. Scratching. It came from behind the walls. Slow, deliberate movements, like fingers dragging through wood. Lena followed the sound to the basement door. The scratching grew louder there, and beneath it, a whisper she had not heard before. Low, calm, waiting. We need you. Lena stood frozen, staring at the basement door as the scratching continued. Whatever lived inside the walls was no longer hiding. It was inviting her in. Lena stood at the top of the basement stairs for a long time. The door was open now. She was certain she had closed it before. The wooden steps below vanished into darkness, swallowing the weak light from the hallway. The air drifting up from below was warm and damp, carrying a smell that made her stomach turn. Not mold, not rot, something older. The whispers had gone quiet. That frightened her more than the noise ever had. The house felt as if it were holding its breath. Lena stepped onto the first stair. It groaned under her weight. The sound echoed downward, swallowed by the dark. With each step, the walls seemed to press closer, the ceiling lowering slightly, as if the house was slowly folding in on itself. Halfway down, the light behind her flickered out. She did not turn around. At the bottom of the stairs was a narrow hallway. No windows, no doors, just bare stone walls, wet with condensation. The floor was uneven, sloping gently downward. Lena followed it, guided by a faint pull she could not explain. The whispers returned, not around her, ahead of her. They grew louder with each step, no longer pleading, no longer warning. They sounded relieved. At the end of the hallway stood a small wooden door. It had no handle. The door looked older than the house itself, its surface scarred and cracked. Strange symbols had been carved into it. Circles within circles, lines crossing at sharp angles. Lena felt dizzy looking at them, as if they were moving when she wasn't watching. She touched the door. It was warm. The whispers surged. Her hand trembled as the door slowly creaked open. Inside was a small room, barely large enough for two people to stand. The walls were made of rough stone, and every inch of them was covered in writing. Names. Hundreds of them. Some were scratched deeply into the stone. Others were faint, barely visible, as if they had been written by fingers growing weak. The floor was stained dark, and the air was thick, heavy, difficult to breathe. Lena scanned the walls, her heart pounding. She recognized some of the names from the newspapers. Missing people, lost people. Near the far corner, written lower than the rest, was her grandmother's name, Margaret Hale. Below it, carved recently, was another name, Lena Hale. Her knees buckled. The whispers filled the room, louder than ever. They circled her, brushing against her skin, pouring into her ears. They were not trying to frighten her anymore. They were explaining. The house was not haunted. It was hungry. It fed on voices, on final words, on screams, prayers, and confessions whispered in the dark. The walls absorbed them, trapping them forever. That was why the voices never faded. That was why they knew everything. The house remembered. Her grandmother had learned the truth long ago. She had made a choice. Someone had to stay. Someone had to listen. Someone had to keep the voices contained. That person was called the Keeper. The whispers shifted. Margaret's voice emerged from the others. I tried to protect you. Lena pressed her hands over her ears, sobbing. I stayed so you wouldn't have to, the voice said. But the house needs someone new. The walls began to tremble. The names on the stone started to bleed. Fresh scratches appeared, carving themselves into the rock, spelling new names as the whispers screamed. Lena stumbled back, gasping for air. She turned to run, but the door slammed shut behind her. The symbols on the door glowed faintly. The whispers roared. You listen, they said. Now you belong. The walls pressed inward. Faces emerged from the stone, mouths open, eyes hollow. The air grew thick, crushing, forcing her to breathe shallow, broken gasps. The floor cracked beneath her feet. Through the noise, one final whisper cut through the chaos. "You were always meant to hear us." The room went dark. When the light returned, the door to the hidden room stood closed. The whispers softened again, and a new name began to appear on the wall. Lena woke on the basement floor. For a moment, she did not know where she was. Her body ached, and the air felt thick in her lungs, like she had been breathing dust. When she tried to move, the stone beneath her felt warm, almost alive. The whispers were quiet again. Not gone, just waiting. She pushed herself up slowly. The hidden room was empty now. The walls were bare stone once more, as if the names had never been there. No blood, no scratches, no door. The room had erased itself. Panic surged through her. She searched for an exit, running her hands along the walls until her fingers burned. There was no crack, no seam, no opening. The room was sealed. Then the whispers returned. They were calm now, patient. "It is time." The stone beneath her feet trembled, and the walls began to move. Not fast, slowly, breathing in and out like a chest rising and falling. The room was shrinking. Lena screamed, but the sound did not echo. It vanished the moment it left her mouth. The whispers answered softly, "We hear you." The stone walls rippled, and shapes began to form. Faces pressed outward from within the rock. Men, women, children. Their eyes were open, wide with terror, their mouths frozen mid-scream. They were not ghosts. They were trapped. Lena stumbled backward as hands pushed through the walls, fingers stretching and breaking through stone like wet clay. They reached for her, not to harm her, but to touch her, to be acknowledged. "Please," the voices begged. "Don't forget us." The room grew darker. A deep vibration filled the air like a heartbeat. The whispers grew louder, layering over one another until Lena could barely think. Then one voice cut through the noise. Her grandmother's. "I stayed as long as I could." The stone wall split open, revealing a narrow corridor. At the end of it stood a figure made of shadow and whispering breath. It had no clear shape, no face, only a presence that bent the air around it. "This is what the house is," Margaret's voice said. "It feeds on voices, on memory, on fear." Lena shook her head violently. "I won't stay," she cried. "I won't become this." The whispers softened. "You already have." The corridor pulled her forward. The floor shifted beneath her feet, guiding her step by step. The house was no longer hiding its power. It moved her like an object. At the end of the corridor was a tall mirror. Lena froze. Her reflection stared back at her, but something was wrong. Her eyes were darker. Her skin looked pale and thin, stretched tight. Her mouth moved a moment before she spoke. "I'm still here," the reflection whispered. Lena reached out, touching the glass. It felt warm, familiar. The whispers circled her. "This is the last night," they said. "Every keeper resists. Every keeper breaks." The house shook violently. Above them, it splintered. Walls cracked. The sound of voices screaming filled every space. The trapped souls were waking. Lena collapsed to her knees, clutching her head. Memories flooded her mind. Voices she had never heard. Lives she had never lived. Fear, regret, final prayers. The house poured them into her, forcing her to listen. Her scream joined the chorus. Slowly, the pain faded. The noise softened. The house exhaled. Lena stood. The whispers no longer surrounded her. They were inside her. She understood now. The keeper did not guard the house. The keeper was the house's voice. The mirror cracked down the center. Her reflection smiled gently. "Welcome, it said. The corridor sealed itself. The mirror faded. The walls grew still. Above, the house returned to silence. In the basement, where no one would ever look, Lena stood alone, listening, waiting. The house in Black Hollow still stands. From the outside, it looks ordinary. Old, yes, but not dangerous. The paint peels slightly. The roof sags in places. To anyone passing by during the day, it appears like just another abandoned home slowly being reclaimed by time. But the locals know better. They never stop near it. They never look directly at the windows. And when night falls, they make sure their doors are locked and their radios are turned up just loud enough to drown out the silence. Because the silence always comes back. Months after Lena Hale arrived in Black Hollow, her car was still parked in the driveway. Dust settled on the windshield. Leaves gathered around the tires. No one touched it. No one asked questions. The police report listed her as missing. No signs of struggle were found inside the house. No forced entry. No blood. No clues. Just an empty bedroom, a clean basement, and walls that felt strangely warm to the touch. The case was quietly closed. At night, the house breathes. It is subtle, slow, almost gentle. The walls expand and contract with rhythm that matches no human heartbeat. Inside, the air is thick with memory. Every whisper ever spoken there still lingers, layered over one another like dust trapped between pages of a forgotten book. And now, among those voices, there is a new one. Lena's. She does not scream anymore. She listens. Travelers passing through Black Hollow sometimes report strange sounds when they stop near the edge of town. Soft murmurs. Broken sentences carried on the wind. They think it's the trees shifting or the house settling. Those who listen too closely hear something else. Warnings. Don't stay. Leave before dark. Please. The voice sounds calm, but underneath it is a quiet desperation, like someone speaking through water. Sometimes, late at night, the lights inside the house turn on by themselves. A single room, a single window. The glow lasts only a moment before darkness returns. When it does, the whispers grow louder. The house is never empty. Every voice it has taken remains. They fill the walls, the floors, the foundation itself. They remember who they were. They remember the moment they realized they would never leave. And the house remembers them too. Lena understands now what her grandmother meant. Being the keeper is not about control. It is about endurance. About listening to endless suffering without losing yourself completely. About absorbing voices. So the house does not tear itself apart in hunger. Each night, Lena walks the halls. She checks the walls. She listens for new sounds. She calms the whispers when they grow restless. Sometimes she speaks back to them, not aloud but in thought. She remembers their names. She remembers their faces. That is the only kindness she can offer. But the house is patient. It always wants more. On certain nights, when the moon is hidden and the town is silent, the whispers change. They sharpen. They reach outward, slipping through cracks in the air, searching beyond the walls. They search for someone who listens, a traveler slowing their car, a stranger curious about the old house, someone who hears a whisper and wonders if it was real. When that happens, Lena feels it, a pull, a connection forming. She tries to warn them. She pushes the whispers toward caution, toward fear. But the house has learned how to speak softly, how to sound inviting, familiar. The front door creaks open, not by itself. Someone has arrived. The house exhales. And deep within its walls, Lena listens as a new voice steps inside, unaware that the whispers they hear tonight will never truly fade. Because in Black Hollow, the night never stops speaking. And once it learns your voice, It never forgets.